monitor of Installation 04. I am 343 Guilty Spark. Someone has released the flood. My function is to prevent it from leaving this installation, but I require your assistance. Come, this way.
Chief, I've lost your signal! Where'd you go? Chief! Chief!
Hey everybody, it's the Crazed Spartan again, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about exploring the lore of Halo. Now the first character I actually want to get into is the character of 343 Guilty Spark. There is so much we learn about this character in the books of Greg Bear called Cryptum and Primordium. Now before I go any further though, I want to give you fair warning here. There are spoilers in this video. If you have not read the Forerunner books by Greg Bear, I highly recommend you do it. First off, they are very good books. I really enjoyed them. Alright, so where do we start with 343 Guilty Spark? Now this is a tough question in itself because of the sheer complexity of his origin. So I think I shall start with a quote from Greg Bear's book, Primordium. A long time ago, I was living, breathing human being. I went mad. I served my enemies. They became my only friends. And that's a quote from Chakis, about to tell his story. Now you might be asking, why am I quoting a human named Chakis? Well, the story of 343 Guilty Spark starts with this human. When Chakis was born, he was visited by the librarian, and during that visit, she imprinted him with a Gaius and the consciousness of the Lord of Admirals Forthenko. Now you are probably asking right now, what in the world is a Gaius? A Gaius is an archaic Forerunner term that referred to a generations-long genetic command imposed on organism or species. Now it is basically a set of subconscious orders that gets passed on to their children and to their children's children and so on and so forth. This could last for many, many generations. The librarian briefly talks about it in Halo 4.
Reclaimer. When I indexed mankind for repopulation, I hid seeds from the Didact. Seeds which would lead to an eventuality. Your physical evolution. Your combat skin. Even your ancilla Cortana. You are the culmination of 1,000 lifetimes of planning.
Now, as he was growing up, he began to dream about a Forerunner who would come to the planet Earth, or Erde Tyrene as the Forerunners called it. We later find out the Forerunner is named Bornstellar, who later becomes the Iso-Didact. Bornstellar does arrive, and Chakis takes him to his friend named Riser. Now, Riser also has been having dreams about this Forerunner due to his imprinted Gaius from the librarian. Now, as a side note, I did want to make this clear here about Chakis' friend Riser. He is a human with a heritage belonging to the Florians. Florians are a type of human that is very short, most not above a meter tall. The most significant thing about them, though, is their extremely long lifespans. Now, at this time in the story, Riser is over 200 years old and is still considered a youngster. Now, I just thought that was interesting when I rediscovered that fact. Now, after I talked about how long the human lifespan could possibly be in one of my previous videos. Now, to continue on, Chakis and Riser take Bornstellar out to, I'm going to kill this name, the Jamonkin crater, where they find the cryptum that contains the Didact. But both Chakis and Riser begin a song that is also imprinted on by their Gaius, and then the cryptum activates and the Didact is released. Now the Didact at this point is not really the Didact we know from Halo 4. It's the same Forerunner, yes, but he has not been driven to madness yet by a Gravemind. But that will have to wait for another video. Now I can say this though, The Iso-Didact, who still adheres to the mantle, treats the humans with a respect that can only be described as a warrior's respect to a very formidable enemy, which is the humans. Now, Riser and Chakas leave Erde Tyrene with the Didact and Bornstellar. They travel to a planet called Cherim Hakor. Cherim Hakor was the last stand for the humans during the Human Forerunner War. The unique thing about this planet was that it used to be a treasure trove of precursor construction and artifacts. Now, if you notice, though, I said used to be. When they arrived, they witnessed the absolute destruction on the planet. All precursor architecture, which was considered to be eternal by Forerunners, means it never degraded, never faltered in any way. All of it was erased. The destruction that they saw was the result of the test firing of a halo ring. Worse yet, they discovered that the Primordial was released from his cell. Now, who is the Primordial? Now, many believe it is the last of the precursors and possibly an early form of a Gravemind. Now, later, Chakas was captured along with Riser, and they were released onto Ring Installation 07. This installation was unique because of the incredibly sheer size of it. It was more or less a prototype for the rings. Now, while on the ring, he comes across a village occupied by humans and befriends a girl called Venevra. I'd probably murdered that name too, and an old man called Gameplar. Venevra has her own Gaius that was given her a direction to go to a safe place on the ring because something has happened to cause the ring to activate its beacon and call all the humans to safety. So they followed her only to discover that it wasn't a safe place. It actually took her to the Primordial. And the Primordial has arrived on the ring and has begun his plans to eliminate all Forerunners. The Primordial has reset the emergency beacon to direct all the humans to its lair called the Palace of Pain, which is where the Forerunners used humans in their flood experiments. So they were not heading towards a safe zone. Now, seeing the Primordial and what he was doing to the humans, they turned around and traveled in the other direction. Now, during that journey, they came across a lot of dead Forerunners, a Gravemind, and most significant among all these things, I think, they saw a trap, or what was a trap, that almost got them composed. Now, the small group saw through the remnants of spirits or other humans that have already been composed. Riser saw through the lies and the spirits, and they left. The group, however, was eventually captured and taken to the Palace of Pain, where Mendicant Blas awaits and promises them revenge on the Forerunners. Now, the consciousness inside both Riser and Chakas were removed, not nicely either. It was a very painful process, and placed inside the monitors. Now, soon after, the Iso-Didact appears with his fleet and begins to purge the ring of all flood contaminants. The Primordial was also captured at that point. Now, the ring, however, was on a collision course towards the nearest gas giant. Now, as protocol dictates when an outbreak of flood occurs. The Iso-Didact takes Chakas to the cartographer, where through him they were able to pilot the ring to go around the planet, through the ring's large interior. Now, this causes extensive damage to the ring, and only by jettisoning sections is the ring able to maintain any integrity. The ring loses an extensive amount of diameter as a result, making it a much smaller ring, more along the size that we know already. During the ring's maneuver, however, Chakas becomes mortally wounded, and the Iso-Didact takes him to the composer and transfers his essence into the monitor known as 343 Guilty Spark. He is then put into charge of Installation 04, where he waits over 100,000 years for the return of the Reclaimers. Now, at this point, we actually know most of the story because all this stuff from here on was actually in the games. Alright everybody, I'm going to wrap this up right about here. This is the story that so far is that we kind of know how Chakas becomes 343 Guilty Spark. Now I'm not going to leave off quite yet. The story isn't quite done, as we all know. Now, I'm going to have a part 2 to this, so do stay tuned for that. Now before I go though, I want to ask you 2 questions. The first one is this content something you would like to see more of in the future? And the second question is, if it is something you'd like to see more of, what character would you like me to get into next? Go ahead and leave a comment down below, and don't forget to hit the like button, because that does help my channel out a lot. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap this up here, so I will see you next time. This is the Crazed Spartan, and I am out of here.